Has it ever felt like God was silent when you needed him most? Maybe it was in the dead of night, when the weight of your burdens pressed so heavily upon your soul that you could hardly breathe. When the promises of faith seemed distant and your prayers felt like whispers lost in the wind. Maybe it was when you watched others walk in joy, in freedom, while you remained stuck wondering why your breakthrough never came. You've prayed, you've fasted, you've cried out to God with every ounce of faith you have left, and with every unanswered prayer, another tear fell. How many tears have you shed in secret where no one but God could see? How many nights have you knelt beside your bed, pleading for relief, only to wake up to the same struggle? How many times have you wiped your eyes, stood up, and kept going despite the ache in your heart because you believed that somehow, some way, God would make a way? Yet instead of deliverance, the burden only grew heavier. And so, the cycle continued. Because no matter how much you believed, no matter how much you gave, no matter how much you surrendered to God, something always seemed to stand in your way. At first, it felt like a test of faith, a season of waiting, a refining fire. But as time passed, the waiting turned into doubt, the silence stretched into despair, and before you knew it, the struggle became your reality. It whispered lies that felt like truth. Maybe God has forgotten me. Maybe I'm not worthy of his blessings. If he truly loved me, wouldn't he have answered by now? That's what hardship does. It clouds your mind. It weakens your spirit. It makes you forget the power and favor God has already placed within you. But hear this now. God has never abandoned you. His silence was never his absence, because the breakthrough you've been longing for has been waiting for you all along. In the next few moments, you will discover a lost prayer, one so powerful, it has the ability to unlock divine blessings, restore what was lost, and open the floodgates of heaven over your life. And once you pray these sacred words, everything will change. Hi, my name is Michael Newman. For 25 years, I was trapped in a relentless nightmare. The echoes of my childhood haunted me, a past stained by pain, by a father who was taken from me too soon, leaving behind a void that no child should ever have to bear. When he died, my mother remarried, hoping to rebuild the life that had been shattered. But instead of finding comfort, we found terror. Her new husband was no protector. He was a tyrant, a man with cruel hands and a heart of stone. The abuse began as whispers of control, but soon it turned into something darker. He didn't just hurt her, he hurt me. And every night I prayed for deliverance. Lord, please make him stop. Please, God, protect us. But the prayers seemed to vanish into the void. And as the bruises deepened, so did my doubts. For 25 long years I endured. But then came the breaking point. After a lifetime of silence, of fear, of waiting for a miracle that never came, I felt a calling from God to stand up to him. I wasn't a child anymore. I wasn't weak. For the first time, something inside me whispered, enough. So I stood before him, no longer willing to cower. I thought that if I showed my strength, if I spoke with conviction, he would back down. But he didn't. Instead, his rage exploded like never before. He beat me so brutally that I was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. When I woke up, my entire body was wrecked with pain. I could barely move. And as I lay there staring at the ceiling, the weight of 25 years of suffering came crashing down on me. Then my eyes landed on something beside me, a box of painkillers. For the first time, I didn't just think about numbing the pain. I manifested the thought of ending my life. This is it, I whispered to myself. No more pain. No more waiting for a God who never comes. I reached for the pills. But then, something happened. A breeze, gentle yet undeniable, swept through the room. Though every window was shut, it carried a presence unlike anything I had ever felt before. And then I felt him. Before I could even comprehend what was happening, God wrapped his arms around me. Not in a vision, not in a dream. I felt him hold me, and at that moment I broke. For years I had been searching for him, crying out to him, begging him to show up. And now he was here. His voice wasn't distant, it wasn't thunderous. It was gentle, warm, full of love. I love you, he whispered. And those 3 words shattered every lie I had believed. The lie that I was forgotten, the lie that I was unworthy, the lie that my suffering was proof that he never cared. I wept like a child in the arms of my Creator. The God I had thought abandoned me had never left. He had been waiting for me to surrender, to let go of my anger, to be still long enough to feel his presence. And that night, as I knelt on the hospital bed, sobbing, I couldn't help but ask, Lord, why did you take so long? Why had he allowed me to suffer for 25 years? Why had he let me believe I was forgotten? I wanted to understand. And in that sacred moment, as I clung to his presence, he answered not in condemnation, not in rebuke, but in the voice of a loving father. My child, I was never late. I was waiting for you to invite me in. I gasped as his words pierced my soul. Every tear you cried, I caught in my hands. Every prayer you whispered, I heard. Every moment you thought I was silent, I was working behind the scenes waiting for your heart to be ready. I shook my head, still struggling to grasp the truth. But Lord, I begged you. I pleaded for you to rescue me. And then, with infinite love and wisdom, he revealed what I had been blind to see. You asked for my help, but you were still holding on to the pain. You were still believing the lies of the enemy. You were still clinging to the wounds of the past instead of reaching for my healing. I couldn't force my way in, Michael. I needed you to surrender. I needed you to let go. Only then could I move. And suddenly, it all made sense. God had never abandoned me. He had been waiting for me to release the chains I had unknowingly clung to, the bitterness, the resentment, the belief that I had to fight this battle alone. The moment I let go, the moment I stopped trying to control my healing, he stepped in. Then, he whispered something else. It was a prayer not like the ones I had prayed in desperation before, but something different, something ancient, powerful, anointed. For 60 seconds, he spoke divine words over me, words so filled with authority and love that my body trembled. It was as if heaven itself had opened. Each word poured into my soul like living water, breaking the chains that had bound me for decades. I felt years of pain dissolve. I felt the weight of addiction, trauma, and fear lift from my shoulders. I felt a peace I had never known before. And as those final words left his lips, I was changed. I fell to my knees, not in despair, but in worship. I had been broken, I had been crushed, and yet he had never left my side. This was one of those hidden things, a sacred prayer, long lost, but revealed to me at the very edge of death. When my body was weak, when my soul had nearly surrendered to the darkness, when I was convinced my life had no more meaning, that's when God spoke. Not in the way I expected, not through thunder or fire, but in a whisper that held more power than every storm I had ever faced, a whisper that carried the weight of eternity. The moment the words left his lips, a warmth spread through me, a peace beyond all understanding. It was unlike anything I had ever known. And then, he left. Not in abandonment, but in victory, because he had already done his part. Now it was up to me to trust him. That night, before I closed my eyes, I recited the prayer not out of desperation, but out of faith, and something within me shifted. For the first time in my life, I felt hope. And then the miracles began. Within 7 days, things started to happen that I never could have imagined. The police showed up at our door. After years of suffering and silence, my stepfather had finally been arrested. The officers told us they needed our testimony. I was terrified, but as I stood there, gripping my mother's trembling hands, I remembered the prayer. And I knew this was God's doing, so we spoke, we testified. And when the trial was over, the judge's words shook me to my core. He will be put away for a very long time. The moment we stepped out of that courtroom, my mother and I turned to each other. For the first time in decades, we were free. And as we fell into each other's arms, we cried not tears of sorrow, but tears of deliverance. You turned my wailing into dancing. You removed my sackcloth and clothed me with joy. Psalm 30:11. But God wasn't done yet. 2 weeks later, the phone rang. It was a call that would change my life forever. A well-known organization had heard about my story. They wanted me to travel the country, speaking out against abuse, sharing my testimony, helping others break free from the same chains I once wore. And they wanted to pay me well to do it. I had spent my life feeling worthless, like I had no purpose. But now God was placing me exactly where he needed me. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11. And then one day, while speaking at an event, I met her. She was in the audience, listening, silent, but when I locked eyes with her, I saw something familiar. After the event, she came up to me. With tears in her eyes, she whispered, "That was my story, too." We sat, we talked, and in that moment, something clicked. It was like I had known her forever, like our souls had been waiting to find each other. And before I knew it, at the age of 25, I found my first love. But here's the truth. As I look back on everything that had happened, the freedom from my past, the justice that was served, the divine opportunity that placed me in my calling, and the love that entered my life, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. This transformation was not my doing. It was God's. And it all began with the prayer He whispered into my soul the night I was ready to give up. A prayer so powerful, so anointed, that it unlocked the gates of heaven over my life. A prayer that broke chains. A prayer that restored what was stolen. A prayer that turned my sorrow into joy and my pain into purpose. I call this prayer Heaven's Open Gate because that's exactly what it does. It opens the gates of heaven over your life. It releases the blessings that have been delayed. It dismantles the strongholds that have held you back. It silences the enemy's grip and replaces despair with God's divine favor. And when you pray it, you will experience what I did. Breakthroughs that happen suddenly. Doors that open effortlessly. Chains of the past shattered in an instant. God's favor flowing into every area of your life, your health, your finances, your relationships, and your destiny. This is not just another prayer. This is the missing key to the divine formula that was hidden for centuries but is now being revealed to you. And as I travel around the world, sharing my testimony, I am also spreading this prayer. And what has happened since? Almost 30,000 lives have been impacted. Men and women who had lost hope, who thought God had forgotten them, people just like you have spoken this prayer, and their lives transformed before their very eyes. Marriages restored. Lisa and David Thompson had been on the brink of divorce after 15 years of marriage. Resentment and financial stress had torn them apart. But after praying Heaven's Open Gate, something shifted. Within a week, David broke down in tears, apologized, and their love was rekindled. Today, they share their testimony, calling it the prayer that saved our marriage. Debts erased. John Ramirez, a single father of two, was drowning in over $40,000 of debt. He had exhausted every option, barely making ends meet. But after praying to Heaven's Open Gate, he received an unexpected job promotion, a bonus large enough to clear a significant portion of his debt, and within 2 months, he was completely debt-free. Illnesses healed. Sarah Mitchell had been battling a chronic illness for 7 years, with doctors giving her little hope. Every treatment failed, and she had resigned herself to suffering. But after speaking Heaven's Open Gate, she woke up one morning feeling different, stronger, and pain-free. Her next doctor's visit confirmed the miracle. Her condition had completely disappeared. Jobless people hired in miraculous ways. Mark Stevenson had been out of work for over a year, facing rejection after rejection. He felt hopeless, convinced that his situation would never change. But after praying to Heaven's Open Gate, within 3 days, he received a call for an interview from a company he applied to. The offer? A position beyond what he had ever imagined, with double the salary of his last job. Families reunited. Maria Gonzalez had been estranged from her daughter for 10 years. No phone calls, no communication, just silence. She had given up hope of ever seeing her child again. But after reciting Heaven's Open Gate, her phone rang. It was her daughter in tears saying she wanted to come home. Today, they are rebuilding their relationship, stronger than ever. These are just a few of the thousands of testimonies from people who have experienced the power of Heaven's Open Gate. And now it's your turn. Because when you speak Heaven's Open Gate, you are speaking the same divine words that open the floodgates of blessings over my life. And right now, you have the opportunity to experience this divine breakthrough for yourself. To receive Heaven's Open Gate and step into God's favor, there is a small contribution, not as a price for the prayer, but as a way to support this mission of healing, restoration, and spreading God's love to those in need. Not because God's blessings can be bought, they cannot. Not because prayer has a price, it does not. But because this is more than just a prayer. This is a mission. As I travel the world, spreading the power of Heaven's Open Gate, I've come to realize something profound. This isn't just about me. This isn't just about one testimony. This is about a movement that is changing lives, restoring hope, and bringing people back into God's divine abundance. Because for every person who finds freedom through this prayer, for every soul that is lifted from suffering, for every life that is forever transformed, there are thousands more who are still trapped. Men, women, and children who are suffering in silence. And I know because I was one of them. That is why I have made it my mission to not only spread this prayer to as many people as possible, but also to help those who need it most. With every contribution to this mission, you are joining a greater purpose. A portion of what you give will go toward rescuing and supporting survivors of abuse, helping those who feel forgotten, just as I once did, providing shelter and resources for those in crisis, ensuring that no one has to suffer alone, feeding and caring for needy children in Africa, giving them the love and support they deserve, expanding this movement so that the prayer of heaven's open gate can reach every person who needs it. I know there are some who say Jesus never asked for money, and they are right. Jesus never demanded money, but he did call us to give, to serve, and to uplift one another. Proverbs 19:17 says, "Whoever is generous to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will repay him for his deed." And 2 Corinthians 9:7 reminds us, "Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver." This is not about a transaction. This is about transformation. This is about standing together as the body of Christ, lifting up those who are in need, and allowing God's blessings to flow through us to others. When you step into this mission, when you say yes to this movement, you are not just receiving the powerful prayer of heaven's open gate. You are becoming part of God's divine work. You are stepping into your own blessing, your own breakthrough, your own moment of divine favor. And as you give, you will see God move in your life in ways you never imagined. So I invite you to be part of this journey, to receive this prayer, to claim your breakthrough, to sow into a mission that is changing lives. Because this is bigger than me. This is bigger than you. This is God's divine plan at work. And right now you have the opportunity to be part of it. This is your moment. For so long, you've waited, prayed, longed for change. This is the sign you've been searching for. The very fact that you're here reading this is proof that God is calling you towards something greater. Do not ignore this divine invitation, because when you speak this prayer, everything will change. Your struggles will turn into testimonies. Your burdens will turn into blessings. Your prayers will turn into miracles. And as you take this step of faith, you will look back on this moment as the day everything shifted. But you must act now, because when God places an opportunity in front of you, it is up to you to take it. Click below to receive heaven's open gate and claim the divine breakthrough that is waiting for you. Your miracle is only one prayer away.